Now, what I've been trying to bring into Irving is 287G. 287G is a federal program, which more or less it allows cities, it's an avenue for cities to be able to do something. Not a lot. It's very, very small in scope. And what I've tried to explain to people when they've asked me about it, both pro and con, it is a tiny, tiny solution. It is a Band-Aid right now, but it is something. It gives us an opportunity to be more proactive and to do what we can. Right now, we're not doing that. Right now, we're doing our CAP program. 287G it's a federal program and allows us to use our police officers and have them trained by government immigration enforcement officers. And they can have access to a database, a federal immigration database. And it gives them the permission by the federal government to question people who are not citizens. When we say criminal illegal aliens, that's what we're talking about. Because what the 287G program does not allow are people to go person by person by person and ask, can you give me your documentation? Can you give me your documentation? But what it does allow our police officers to do is if they are already in the course of responding to a criminal call, they can ask for information. So if there's a domestic dispute, if there's a DUI, they can ask at that time. They can do the checks, they can do the interviews, and they have access to a database. Now, what has been huge in our city, we don't want to pay for it. Because if we have our police officers trained, that's all. We have to hire more police, and we have to pay for training. You don't pay for training. The federal government pays for the training, they pay for all the supplies. What we have to do, though, is pay for the policeman's time. I think it's worth it.
Amen.
How do you really justify we need more police officers writing tickets other than we need more police officers affecting and talking about criminal illegal aliens? It's really a hard argument to make because we're talking about hiring 20 additional officers and yet we can't afford 3 to do this program. And this is the fight that we're up against. Honestly, this is the fight that we're up against. And as a result, we get a lot of discussion going on, but in order to get some kind of positive light on this, our mayor decided to put the CAP program up for a vote. We were going to talk about it. We were finally going to talk about it. And there was really not much to talk about up until then because the only thing we were talking about was the phone call. What I did, thankfully, we have another city council person on who shares my opinion on this issue. I was able to add an addendum to an amendment. We had a resolution, and I jumped in and I made a motion. I said, I want to make a motion that we should adopt this CAP program and 287G. And I got a second. We forced them to vote on it because up until that point, all they were saying, well, we would do it, but we just don't know that we want to. And really, Councilwoman Van Duyne hasn't taken a position on this. Now, don't talk about the fact that we've never been able to talk about it in a public setting, but Councilwoman Van Duyne's never taken a stand on this, whether or not she's for or against it. So by forcing the vote, it really brought some of the discussion up. And the question that came up a lot was the cost. And to me, it's just well worth it. It's not really an issue. And honestly, we don't even know if it would cost anything. There's 2 different types of models. There's the detention model, and there's a more proactive model where your police officers who are responding to a call can interact with people without having to bring them to the jail. But what we're talking about doing is simply doing a detention model, where when people were arrested for doing criminal activities, our police officers were able to deal with them right there. Now, when we ask the question, well, what's the difference? We're already getting all of the benefits, and we're not having to pay anything. Or you're not getting all the benefits. And I would argue that the difference is having an alarm on your house versus just having the police officers respond. You know that alarm is on 24/7. If you have any other issues, you know that you're not taking the place of the police department. You're not doing the police officers' jobs, but you are making it more obvious that, even if you put a sign, which basically if we do the 287G, it's not simply what we're doing, it's what we're saying. And everything that you do in the city, on city government, your perception is very, very important. And the perception that we have right now, that we are open to all inhabitants and that we are not going to enforce federal illegal immigration laws is a negative perception in my mind. And as a result, I think what we needed to do was actually have that vote, but it would have been much stronger had it been a 2A7G vote. Now, we are moving beyond it, we're moving on, but I'll tell you, every single time we have a discussion about this, I get hate mail, I get in fights with fellow council members who just say I'm grandstanding, and really what helps me is knowing that there are so many people behind it, and so many people supportive of it. And after every meeting, along with a hate mail, I will get probably 10 to 1 support letters. People say, I know it's hard, but you are doing the right thing. And I appreciate the fact. And I appreciate the fact that you're willing to stand up and do it. Because it's not easy. I hear so many of my council members who, until just May, where I was the only female on the council, would say, oh, I'm not going to fall on my sword. I just can't fall on my sword for that. And I think it was Sue who said, men fall on their swords and women stand by their convictions. That's a great quote. I love that quote. Farmers Branch, really, if you look at their population, the Metroplex is a small city. And they are all by themselves right now. And what you need is you need to have a regional cooperative until such time you can have a national cooperative, which is what we're asking our federal government to provide. But right now, what we can do is on the city council, our city councils around the Metroplexes get together. Because I'll tell you right now, it's a lot more difficult if all the cities start making a point. And there's a perception, North Texas is very unfriendly to criminal illegal aliens. What I'm trying to do right now in the council, because we can't talk about it, we can't discuss it, I'm trying to work around that. And instead right now of bringing up new ordinances that we can argue will just cost us lawsuit money, what I'm trying to do is enforce the ordinances that we have already on the books. We have a problem in Irving, and 7 of our council members don't agree with me, but we have a problem in Irving. We have too many people living in single-family homes. And I know Irving is not alone in that. We have too many people living in single-family homes. So, and regardless of whether or not they are legal or illegal, the problem is we are overpopulated in many of our neighborhoods. And as a result, you've got too many cars in yards, you've got too many kids in schools, you've got a stress on our healthcare system. What we can start doing is really cracking down in neighborhoods. It doesn't necessitate a new ordinance. We need to start enforcing our laws, both city, both state, and federal.